So I believe that it's important for us to tell stories to one another, and we all know facts and we all have heard about things, but we need to understand those things, how they relate to our own lives, and that's what's important. And I want to tell you something, that this is from a wee book that I know. Wolves had been more plentiful in the 16th century, as appears from the account written originally in Latin by William Berkeley, one of the Queen's suite, of a great deer drive given by the 4th Earl of Atholl in 1564 for Mary Queen of Scots. We've all heard of her, she got her head cut off. 2,000 Highlanders, or wild Scots as you call them here, were employed to drive to the hunting ground all the deer from the woods and hills of Atholl, Bannermar, Murray and counties about. As these Highlanders were used a light dress and are very swift of foot, they went up and down so nimbly that in less than 2 months' time they brought together 2,000 red deer besides roes and fallow deer. The Queen, the great men and others were in the glen when all the deer were brought before them. Believe me, the whole body of them moved forward in something like a battle order. This sight still strikes me. I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. This account is written by Lord Moncrieff, who I was just talking about. Lord Moncrieff, Lord Moncrieff still has Tullibole Castle, Crooked, and the Crooked is renowned for its history and its connection to the witch hunts and the witch trials. And on the grounds of Tullibole Castle right now, there's a pathetic little maze, and this maze is essentially, although they don't use this language to describe it, this maze is reparations for the murder of 6 women and 1 man. And these people, I remember hearing a story, these people were obviously engaged in like pagan practices to get these lords and aristocrats off their ground. And in one instance, I think it was a man involved in this trial and who was subsequently murdered. He was caught because he was burying objects on their land. It wasn't their land, they'd just come in. So the sight still strikes me, and ever will, for they had a leader whom they followed close whenever he moved. The leader was a very fine stag. My great uncle, the 7th Duke of Atholl, comments here, unless the habits of deer were different in those times, surely it must have been a hind, with a very fine head. The sight delighted the Queen very much. Oh, lucky, lucky, lucky. But she soon had occasion for fear upon the earls, whom had been accustomed to such sight, addressing her thus: Do you observe that stag who is foremost of the herd, my lady? There is danger from that stag, for if either fear or rage should force him from that ridge of that hill, let everyone look to himself, for none of us will be out of the way of harm, for the rest will follow this one, and having thrown us underfoot, they will open a passage to the hills behind us. Well, of course the stags are going to open a passage to the hills behind them, because that's where the stags are from, and that's where the stags live. And why I really love that wee story is because it employs the principle or the drive which is still used today in hunting and for the wealthy sportsmen. And this book is the Wild Sports and Natural History of the Highlands by Charles St. John. And Charles St. John is probably systematically, first and foremost, one of the most responsible for the death of the wild cat in Scotland. And the reason why the drive is so important is because that's what they did to the people of Scotland as well. They drove us from the Highlands. Like in this book, they detail the drive taking 2 months. So for us, it didn't take 2 months. It took centuries, maybe quite a few centuries. But they were systematically the elite, the people who wanted the land for themselves, were very systematic in what they were doing, and they were motivated by greed, and they were prepared to wait countless generations. And they did, and they got what they waited for.